Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Charles Rajo. I am the founder of the Institute for Digital Transformation, and I am so glad you are all with us here today. If you don't know the Institute, you should. We are a beacon of what is going on in the industry around everything about digital transformation. And shockingly, we were talking about this long before it became the uber crazy buzzword that it is today. And in fact, that's sort of why we're here. Manifestos are this sort of interesting thing. They're very important, particularly when you have a topic that is confusing or that is being used to mean a bunch of different things. And there may be no topic that fits the bill for more than digital transformation. And it's for this reason that a group of our Institute fellows, we have an entire team of fellows of the Institute that sort of are our big thinkers, they decided to come together and actually create a manifesto to define what digital transformation is really all about. And that's what we're going to be discussing here today. So with that, I would like to welcome the team that put this all together, and they're going to take you down this road and explain what all this is, why it's important, and how you can get involved. So with that, let me introduce the team. Jessica Carroll, Hans Gillior, Ray Sheen, and John Thorpe. And Jessica, let me hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Charlie. We're super excited to have this conversation today. And I know we've got a great audience listening, and we are also really interested in your perspectives as well, both today and going forward. And Hans is going to share a little bit later what that means. But I think, my perspective on all of this is that digital transformation, we know it's been around a long time. We see organizations doing transformation efforts all over the place. But I think what's really intriguing is that we also see that digital transformation means something different to everyone you ask, right? So each of us has our own definition. We have different initiatives that we feel fall into that bucket. And it can be a little confusing. And I think, Charlie, you're absolutely right. There's a little bit of unclarity around what that is and what that means. At the Institute, we believe that digital transformation is far more than iterative changes to processes or layering in more technologies to make things, faster, better, cheaper. We think it's a much broader topic than that, and far more valuable than even those iterative changes. So what we wanted to do was to really create a framework, an objective framework, right? Because we don't really have invested interest in one way or the other than looking for clarity behind all of it and really being helpful within the industry as people approach, and launch these initiatives. So we wanted to come together and create some sort of guidelines to help leaders as they're creating their roadmap for transformation, really to help make sure that they're targeted and able to succeed in these ventures. So I think perhaps a good place to start might be to toss this to you, John. I've heard you describe digital transformation many times, and I think sort of the way you encapsulate it might really help the conversation here. So I'm going to toss it to you and ask you if you could share your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Jessica. When Charlie first contacted me close to 10 years ago, he invited me to become involved in what was then called the IT Transformation Institute. A few years later, I suggested to Charlie that rather than using the label IT with all the baggage that carried, a more forward-looking and less techie label would be digital transformation. Shortly thereafter, the Institute for Digital Transformation was born, and the rest is history, or more accurately, a still unfolding story. I'd hoped that the new term would shift the focus of transformation beyond the technology to the fundamental business and organizational transformation that digital technology enables and indeed requires if organizations are to realize value from their transformation journey. Unfortunately, letters IT are right in the center of the word digital, and much of what is described as digital transformation today is still primarily focused on the technology. The reality is that if organizations, public and private, large and small, are to realize value from their digital investments, they need to recognize that one, digital transformation is an ever-evolving, digitally driven and enabled journey, a journey of exploration and experimentation. Two, it represents a cultural and mindset change, a change which involves continually challenging all aspects of the status quo. And it requires reimagining and fundamentally transforming government, business, and society, and doing so in a way that is inclusive of and creates value for all stakeholders. This is the thinking that is behind and what drives the manifesto. And I'll now hand over to Ray to cover the 8 tenets of that manifesto.
Thank you, John. The 8 tenets of the manifesto are ones that are foundational now in a digitally transformed company. As you look at these, you may say, well, our company has done some of these, or at least aspirationally, we've striven to try and achieve these. This has now moved from being aspirational to foundational. We don't believe a company can be successful in their digital transformation unless they have embraced these 8 tenets. Let me just quickly run through each one. The first is we proactively embrace change. Now, change has been something that is very different from a classic Industry 2.0 or 3.0 view. In that time, we were looking to get stability in our organizations. We wanted to drive out variation. Now we're saying just the opposite. We embrace change. We change regularly. We change frequently. The terms like mass customization are now part of our vernacular. And so we're ready and frequently making changes, which leads us to the next one. We have the ability, or rather the agility, to pivot quickly. And what we mean by that is that we've made this now a core competency. We've done the training, we've done the equipping so that we can scale up, scale down, move our organization into whatever direction it needs to go. And we can do that rapidly, quickly. It is now our core competency. We've stepped away from being the same stable company at all times. We now really can quickly change to become a new business, a new enterprise, depending upon what's happening around us in our marketplace and with our customer base. Now, the third one is we create purpose-based value. You may say, well, we've always tried to do that. Our organization's always been about creating value, and we have a purpose, we have a mission statement. Well, yes, organizations have had those, but once again, in this digitally transformed world, this now becomes a core competency. Everything is aligned around this value, this purpose-based value. We're able to automate so much of our normal background activities that now we can focus specifically on creating the value and making sure that that value stays aligned with our purpose. If we become distracted, if we get distracted, it distracts our stakeholders, our customers, everyone we're working with. So we want to maintain that purpose-based value. Our fourth one is the customer and stakeholder experience is at our core. And the key word there is experience. We no longer think in the context of transactions. We're now thinking in the context of relationship, experience. We have multiple interactions with our customers and our stakeholders, whether they're searching online, they're in the midst of the transaction, and that transaction may take on several different layers as we have the delivery of the service and the payments. And then we have the ongoing service and interactions and support. And it's now this entire experience is at our core. We're no longer content to just sell a good product and walk away. We're now maintaining an ongoing relationship with our customers. The fifth tenet was our decisions are driven by data. You know, again, back in the Industry 2.0, 3.0 world, we often had to make our decisions based on our gut, based on experience, based on what we've learned over 20 years. That's because many times the data either was missing or it was late in terms of making wise decisions. Now we have real-time data, and a complete set of data can be available. So we can now make our decisions based on data. And that's probably a good thing because your gut is based upon those Industry 2.0 or 3.0 practices, and things have definitely changed. And so we now don't want to rely on our gut. We want to rely on the data, which is telling us what's really happening in the marketplace, what's really happening with our customers and our stakeholders right now. The next one is we are reimagining our business strategies and practices. Now, all these together that we've put together so far are allowing us to reimagine strategies, reimagine practices, reimagine our business. We can quickly pivot. We can embrace change. We can be a new business, and we are changing the form of our business, changing the nature of our business, changing the nature of our enterprise to meet the needs that are also rapidly changing. One of the elements of the digital part of digital transformation is it now makes it much easier to get data, to move data, to understand what's happening around us. That allows us to reposition ourselves to where we want to be to achieve our mission, to achieve our purpose. The seventh tenet was our culture is one of empowering individual leadership. Now, you may say, well, we've always been about empowering people and we want leaders. Once again, this has moved from an aspirational goal to an absolute requirement for success. With the speed at which things are happening now, decisions are made at the edges of the company. And that edge is where we need to have our leaders. We don't have the luxury of sending information up the chain and waiting weeks or months for an answer to come back down. We're making real-time decisions at the edges of the company, and that's where our leaders need to be. And they need to be empowered to make wise decisions, to make the decisions that we need for our company to achieve its goal, its purpose, to achieve its mission, and the purpose-based value that we're trying to, that everything's organized around. And our final one is ethics are integral to our organization. Once again, you may say, well, we've always said ethics were important. In today's digitally transformed world, transparency is a fundamental aspect of how we do business now. We don't have the luxury of being able to say one thing and do something else. We can't greenwash, for instance. Whatever we're doing will become instantly known throughout our industry, throughout potentially the world. And our stakeholders, our customers, are going to quickly say, you said one thing, you're doing something else. We no longer trust you. And if we don't trust you, we'll quickly switch to someone else. Even our employees are able to say that now. In this virtual world of virtual workers, employees can quickly move companies. So we need to have the ethics, the integrity to do what we say, to actually follow through on what we've said are our values, our mission, our purpose. Well, these are the 8 tenets that we developed that we believe now are at the core for successful organizations being digitally transformed. Now, keep in mind, digital is not the goal here. Digital is just the enabler. Transformation is the true goal. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Hans, who's going to talk about how we take this going forward.
Thank you so much, Ray. It is important here when we start discussing the manifesto and the tenets that these are coming alive. It's not a piece of paper that we're trying to communicate, but actually living these tenets and make them work in our daily lives. And it's a way for you also to get engaged and participate in developing how we use these tenets in our offices and in our businesses. So we have defined or developed a work group, and that is a team of digital transformation practitioners that turn the tenets into practice by building a common knowledge base using and including articles, tools, webinars we do, maybe company visits, best practice of way of working, etc., etc. It's a foundation of how we actually use this in our daily life and in our daily business. The idea is that I will head this work group and invite all members, participants, to contribute and to be responsible in their as much as they like to make this possible, to contribute with their success stories or articles or best practice tools or methods that support the tenets of the manifesto itself. So what we will do after this meeting is that we will invite all of you who are listening to this this webinar or this launch of the manifesto, and also those who signed up to ratify the tenets, to take part and be part of this work group. An invitation will be sent out shortly after this launch. Well, so what does it actually mean in practice? So what we will do is probably have virtual bi-monthly meetings where we discuss different topics. We share knowledge, we share stories about how we actually use these tenets in our daily life. And that is the way we will go forward, to make this come alive, to make this part of our working day and our business transformations. So that is the foundation of the work group that we will launch quite soon. Any questions?
to the audience, you are able to put questions in the chat if you want to share in the conversation. We're happy to answer any questions you may have. You got the full team here. So how do we view different maturity starting points for different companies? That's a good question. Ray or Hans or John, you wanna take that one? I know with your consulting work, you see a varied number of organizations going through this. So jump in.
Yeah, definitely. We see different starting points when it comes to doing this digital transformation journey. Companies come different lengths in actually starting to practice this kind of tenets itself. So what we do actually to understand what they need to do, we in the institute have digital transformation readiness assessments that we can do actually to see where are you on the journey, what do you need to do to fulfill these tenets, and how can we help you to do that, either by concretely helping you to develop your company or being excellent coaches or advisors in how that would happen. But our starting point is always about following the manifesto, following the tenets that are a guarantee for best practice.
And I think I want to go back to sort of where John was taking us to sort of wrap this around, that this concept of transformation doesn't have a specific end goal that it's done, right? I mean, we know that there's goals along the way, and I think one of our participants just put that up in the chat, and I think they're absolutely right about that. But to say your transformation is done, I think we would say is not possible, right? I mean, John, I think you've made that very clear about your description and that it's a journey. And is there anything you'd want to add to that?
Yeah, and I think I want to make it sure, and it's been said by others, that although we use the term digital, this is not a digital transformation, it's a business transformation. And unless the leaders of the business understand that and own this and feel accountable for it, you're going to have a tough road to hoe. This is fundamentally changing the very nature of your business. And that isn't a technical issue, that's a business issue. It's enabled, the change is enabled by and required by the technology, but the business has to take ownership of this. The business leaders have to take ownership and be accountable.
It's pretty, I mean, if you're really talking about change that way, it can be pretty uncomfortable, right? We tend to be set in our ways and we think we have a path we want to take. And I'm just curious, and this is just my question, thinking about what you guys have said, and what have you seen as far as, is there a common theme for businesses that are able to actually make transformative change just in general, sort of a high level? Is there something you see? Ray, you're shaking your head.
Sure. What I've seen is really there's two types of businesses that are moving well in this direction. One is the digital native, the company that started off digital right from the get-go. This often is a very small company, a nimble company. They've been working at the digital level, and so they are regularly changing themselves as they are rapidly growing or morphing from one model to another. They've embraced that, and that's how they work together. Whether or not they last remains to be seen, because most of these are small companies quickly growing into a space, sometimes a space that they have defined. The other are the digital giants. And those digital giants, I see themselves as continually gobbling up new elements of their marketplace or of the world. They are, once again, changing themselves, reimagining themselves. We'll start with one of the obvious ones. Amazon started as an online bookseller. They're a whole lot more than that now, as they have continually transformed their operations. We see that with several of the other large digital giants. They are continually reinventing themselves, or at least spinning off new business units that are picking up other elements. And so that's where I'm seeing that happening. There's those who are embracing it, embracing the change, as they're looking at their model. Their business model is not stagnant. Their business model is fundamentally changing, and it's changing rapidly.
Very, very helpful. We've got a great question. Alicia, thank you so much for posting that up there. I think this is a perfect question. So, is this a US-based kind of, manifesto, or does this really span various cultures? And I think, Hans and John are not US, which I think is part of what makes the whole fellow and institute program such a unique one, because we've got voices from all around the globe. So Hans or John, you want to take that one? Maybe Hans, you want to answer, how you view it culturally?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, definitely. So I'm calling in from Stockholm, Sweden, in the Nordic here in Europe, and been working on these tenets for quite some time together with the team. And I think that these tenets that we're looking at are very universal in many ways. It's about changing the mindset, the culture of the company to be successful in some way. Today, the digital market is a global market, and we all need to be on top of these kind of things to make it different and be relevant. And it's the same here in Sweden as is in the UK or in the US or wherever you are calling in from.
And I think, and reminding the audience, please, we're going to be on for just another minute or two. So put your questions up there. And also you'll see in the bottom of the window, the link to the actual manifesto online. And we invite you to go out there. And if you subscribe to the fact that we're at least directionally correct, please sign it. We want your voice on there. And that's also where you're going to be able to let us know if you want to join in on Hans's work group that he's leading for all of us. So thank you for that. And then we have another question up here. So should an organization's digital transformation strategy be driven by industry digital transformation trends or pursue its own unique strategy? Interesting question.
Well, the answer to that is yes and yes. Yes, it should be driven by the industry, but yes, it should also seek its own unique ways of being able to create competitive advantage. You have to be relevant in the industry if you want to stay in the industry. So you need to be aware of what's happening there. But don't let yourself be constrained or confined by what others in the industry are doing. Look for your own unique model, your own unique way of being able to deliver. Do that rapid pivot. Reimagine your business and drive the industry in another direction as you search for your own competitive advantage.
And I would agree with that, and I would make another comment, and it comes to a number of the comments. One, I said you have to have leadership from the top, but you have to, from day one, involve the people who are going to have to do this. And if you don't involve the workers, the people who are going to have to do this from the beginning and keep them involved, you won't succeed.
That's true. I love to describe it this way. The employees must be a part of the ride, right? If they're not bought in and they don't believe in, if they don't feel that the organization is transforming in a way to support them in the same way that it's looking to support its customers or stakeholders, it's going to fail, right? You need your team behind you, and they need to feel like they're both a part of the process and also appreciated in the same way you would appreciate your customer. So super.
And quite often they know more than you do.
Yes. Agreed. And we've got a question from Dia. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So is business transformation based on technology or does it tackle strategy and culture? And I would say, well, it's all of that, right? I mean, technology, we view that as an enabler. Look, we're all technologists. We love technology. We see it as a way to solve problems, but we don't put technology in just because it's technology. We put it in because it serves a purpose. And I think that's the key piece behind that.
As I said, technology enables it. And if you want to get the value out of the technology, it requires it. But you have to quite often change your culture, and the leadership has to change, and what people do has to change. So technology is a piece of it. But if you think it's just technology, again, you will fail.
Yep. And John Erickson, nice to see you there. Thanks for popping in with your support. Sorry, Ray, go ahead.
I was going to say a metaphor on the use of technology is if you're running a railroad, you can use technology to make your locomotive more efficient, make it faster, track your cars, but you're still stuck on those rails. If you want to actually transform the business, you use your technology, but you also want to get off of those rails and be able to take your passengers or freight or whatever anywhere. And so that's where it's both a business transformation and a technology innovation.
Oh, I like that analogy, Ray. That was really good. You're going to have to write an article on that one, I think. We need to hear more about that. And any last questions we've got up there? Okay, Michael. So how are popular product transformation programs impacting digital transformation programs? Who wants to take that one? I've got silence from this team. Impossible.
No,
it is impossible that you guys would be silent.
I feel like I've talked too much. I was going to let someone else answer first. But let's just take one example of product transformation that's impacting digital is a number of years ago, we saw the transformation of products of the cell phone. We went from landline phones to cell phones, and then we went to smartphones. And of course, we're still calling it a phone, but it's no longer a phone. I hardly ever use my cell phone to talk to people anymore. Now it's really an app dispenser. And so that digital transformation of a product has essentially enabled many new industries, because now with all the apps I have at my disposal on my phone, I can do all kinds of things anywhere in the world instantaneously. So that's a place where product transformation then led to whole industry transformation.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for whoever just gave me a little props there. I appreciate that. So we're coming down to almost a half an hour in. So we're going to start to close out. So we'll take any last questions. And then if anybody has anything kind of to finally wrap up, happy to do that. And we thank you guys for, jumping in here with your thoughts. So Hans, I'm going to end with you because you're going to take us to the next level. But John Thorpe, anything last that you would want to say to the group before we close out?
No, other than I think it is. I'll go back to mine. It's a journey. It's an exciting journey.
Yeah.
Might have its bumps, but it's a journey that needs to be taken.
Awesome. Ray, any last words? Or you said you've talked too much, you're done. You're completely done with this now.
I agree with everything said.
Awesome. Okay, so we know Hans is going to take us to the next stage. We as a team have been working for a couple of years on this now, believe it or not. We've had quite a lot of fun together, or maybe not sometimes, but always in the spirit of how can we really stretch what we believe and make sure all perspectives are kind of built into this, because the end purpose, as we said in the opening, is how do we create a framework that can help you guys, right? So that's sort of the point. You'll see again the link at the bottom there is the manifesto. We would love for you to go take a look at it and put your signature in there. And Ray and John, thank you so much for being part of the team along with me. It's been actually honestly an honor to work with you guys. And Hans, if you want to do any last words on how people can get in touch with you.
Yeah, definitely. This launch of the manifesto is the starting point. We have a long journey together to make it work in practice. So let's all take responsibility for the digital transformation practice and jointly work together to use the Digital Transformation Manifesto as a standard for our daily work and build a common knowledge base to share. And that is the starting point for the work group that we have established. And we will contact you all to invite you to participate in this work group. I also would like to take the opportunity to thank all participants in this launch and webinar. And also thank all the fellows of the Institute that have been working very, very hard on defining and launching these tenets. And also Charles, Frank, and John, who are heading the Institute and making this possible. And with these final words, I'd like to continue the work and start up the work groups, and hoping that you will join us with that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.